Now you're in my territory. But you're welcome to pass through if you'd like.
Pass through? Think I'd rather take it back.
Have it your way.
When I first watched The Lion Guard, I thought Jasiri was just the token good hyena character, but beneath her brave smile, I noticed strange details hiding like shadows. Where were her parents? Why does she only have her sister and 2 cubs in her clan? Why is she living in such dangerous territory? The more I analyzed her character, the more I realized we were missing a huge part of her story. Today I'm sharing the dark backstory that explains everything about Jasiri, a hidden narrative of loss, trauma, and rebuilding that Disney scattered throughout the series, leaving us to piece together the truth behind this remarkable hyena's journey. Have you ever noticed something strange about Jasiri's clan in the Lion Guard? While Janja leads dozens of hyenas through the Outlands, Jasiri only has her sister Madoa and 2 cubs named Tunu and Wema in her territory. It's a detail that might seem minor at first, but when you look closer, this tiny clan size reveals something deeply troubling about Jasiri's past. When we first meet Jasiri in the episode Never Judge a Hyena by Its Spots, she's wandering alone through dangerous territory, confident but isolated. As the series progresses, we only ever meet these 3 other clan members, a striking anomaly when you consider that wild-spotted hyena clans typically have between 40 to 80 members, sometimes reaching up to 130 individuals. They live in structured social groups led by dominant females who inherit their status from their mothers. Jasiri's clan resembles a family portrait with most members erased, leaving just fragments of what should be there. The creators of the Lion Guard deliberately made her clan this small, breaking from both real hyena behavior and what we've seen elsewhere in the Lion King universe. Remember how many hyenas followed Scar? They filled the elephant graveyard with dozens of laughing shadows. Even Janja commands a large force of hyenas who follow his every command, but Jasiri barely has enough clan members to survive. This unusual detail signals a hidden tragedy. Look at how Jasiri interacts with Tunu and Wema, the 2 young cubs in her care. She's their protector, almost like a mother figure despite clearly being too young for that role. She shows a level of responsibility and nurturing that would typically fall to older, more experienced hyenas in a normal clan structure. She's stepping into shoes that should belong to parents or elders who are mysteriously absent. Even more telling is the territory Jasiri's tiny clan claims. It sits in a dangerous middle ground, caught between the Pride Lands where lions rule and the more aggressive Outlander hyenas led by Janja. It's rocky, has limited resources, and requires constant defense. This isn't territory a thriving clan would choose. It's exactly the vulnerable position a decimated group would be forced into after catastrophic loss. When we connect these pieces, a dark picture emerges. Something devastating must have happened that wiped out most of Jasiri's family, leaving only this remnant group struggling to survive on the margins. Her fierce protection of her sister and the cubs suggests she's experienced the pain of losing family members. Her openness to forming alliances with lions, traditional enemies of hyenas, might be a desperate strategy born from knowing her clan is too small to survive alone. She's making alliances with Kion because her family's survival depends on it. Jasiri's territory sits directly on the borderlands where the Pride Lands meet the Outlands, a location so dangerous it's practically a death sentence for most hyenas. The geography itself tells us a hidden story about Jasiri's past that the show never explicitly reveals. Why would any hyena willingly choose to live where lion patrols regularly pass through and where resources are so scarce that survival becomes a daily struggle? This barren no man's land with its cracked earth and threatening lion roars echoing across the desolate landscape represents a battlefield of survival few could endure. Looking at the landmark episode Lions of the Outlands, we see something truly desperate. Jasiri approaches Kion, a lion prince, for help securing water access. In hyena culture, approaching lions voluntarily would be seen as absolute madness given their historical enmity. Her desperate gambit for water access during a drought showcases the extreme measures forced by her precarious position, a hyena making an alliance with her natural predator because no other options remained. What's especially telling is how Jasiri navigates her barren homeland. She's developed an intimate knowledge of every hidden water source source, every potential shelter, and every safe passage. When she first guides Kion through the Outlands, she demonstrates an uncanny familiarity with routes that avoid detection from both lion patrols and rival hyenas. These skills developed out of necessity, survival adaptations for living in what amounts to a demilitarized zone between two hostile powers. The territorial economics of the Outlands follow a brutal pattern that mirrors real hyena behavior. The strongest clans claim the best hunting grounds and water sources, while weaker groups get pushed to increasingly marginal areas. Janja's much larger clan controls significantly better territory than Jasiri's small family. This hierarchy forces Jasiri's diminished clan to survive at the very edges where nobody else wants to live, amid jagged rocks and volcanic steam vents. There's also the matter of the constant territorial pressure from Janja's clan. Throughout multiple episodes, we see Janja attempting to expand into Jasiri's small territory, not because it's particularly valuable, but because it's one of the few areas his larger group can easily take. This ongoing threat creates a perpetual state of vigilance for Jasiri's clan, forcing them to develop extraordinary defensive strategies despite their small numbers. Remember that shocking moment in Rescue in the Outlands when Janja traps Jasiri in a steam vent. His eagerness to eliminate her specifically points to a longer history of conflict. His animosity felt personal, suggesting previous confrontations that might connect to whatever catastrophe reduced Jasiri's clan to its current state. While Janja's attacks reveal the external threats Jasiri faces, her own behavior betrays an internal struggle few viewers recognize. What if the most compelling evidence about Jasiri's dark past isn't in what happened to her clan's territory, but in the subtle ways she carries herself? The hypervigilance, the protective instincts, and the way she freezes when lions roar unexpectedly? Animation isn't random. Every character movement is deliberately designed. Jasiri's body language tells a story the writers never put into words. Watch her carefully and you'll see how she constantly scans her surroundings, ears twitching at the slightest noise, muscles tense during casual conversations. These are textbook indicators of someone who's survived significant trauma. Remember that moment when a distant lion's roar causes her to freeze mid-sentence, pupils dilating, before she forces a smile and continues. Her body remembers dangers her mind tries to forget. When Kion first approaches her, she immediately drops into a defensive posture, teeth bared, expecting an attack before any words are exchanged. This response comes from someone who's learned through painful experience that unexpected visitors usually mean danger, and when she does relax around Kion, it happens in stages, like someone carefully lowering their guard one small piece at a time. This hypervigilance extends to social interactions too. Jasiri maintains a careful emotional distance even with allies, quick to offer help but reluctant to accept it. When Kion offers assistance, she initially refuses despite clearly needing it. This behavior reveals someone for whom vulnerability has become dangerous, a classic trauma response after betrayal or loss. Even her extraordinary empathy carries trauma markers. When she finds Kion lost in the Outlands, she connects with his disorientation instead of abandoning him. "I know what it's like to be the outsider," she tells him, words carrying profound weight from someone who's experienced deep alienation and loss. What's remarkable is how Jasiri transformed these experiences into protective instincts rather than cruelty. Unlike Janja, whose hardships fueled aggression, Jasiri channels her pain into fierce guardianship. In that pivotal scene where she places herself between danger and her younger clan members, we witness not just leadership but the actions of someone who's already lost too much and refuses to lose more. This psychological profile reshapes our understanding of her story. Jasiri isn't different from other hyenas because of innate moral superiority. She's different because trauma changed her trajectory. She chose compassion and cooperation, not from naivety, but from a profound understanding of violence's true cost, turning survival into a form of resistance against the darkness that once threatened to consume her. Beyond Jasiri's personal traumas lies an even darker connection that Disney carefully avoided explaining directly. The timing of Jasiri's birth perfectly coincides with the chaotic aftermath of Scar's reign. And when we look at what happened to all those hyenas who once served the lion tyrant, the pieces of Jasiri's fragmented past suddenly lock into place. The aftermath of Scar's defeat unleashed violent upheaval throughout the Outlands. The Lion Guard series takes place between the original Lion King and Lion King II, Simba's Pride, with Jasiri born precisely when hundreds of hyenas from Scar's army were cast out from the Pride Lands, creating a massive wave of desperate refugees. What actually happened to these hyenas after Simba took the throne? The movies create this suspicious narrative gap, pretending they simply vanished, but displaced populations don't just disappear. appear. Hundreds of starving, battle-hardened hyenas scattered throughout the Outlands, competing fiercely for every scrap of food and territory they could claim. This displacement turned the Outlands into a battleground. Established clans faced impossible choices: fight against overwhelming numbers or abandon their territories. Many smaller groups were completely annihilated as Scar's former soldiers, conditioned to violence and desperate for survival, seized their lands without mercy. This dark legacy perfectly explains why Jasiri's clan is so unnaturally small and why they survive in such marginal territory. They're the survivors of a brutal purge. Her family likely once held better lands, but became targets when Scar's defeated followers flooded into the Outlands, showing no mercy to smaller groups standing in their path. The scars of this broken regime appear in how Jasiri repeatedly challenges the belief that hyenas and lions can't get along. When she tells Kion, "Just because we're different doesn't mean we can't get along," she's rejecting the very ideology that led hyenas to follow Scar and ultimately brought destruction upon her species. Her philosophy about sharing resources rather than fighting reveals even more. "We all do better when we respect the circle of life," she explicitly states, a direct contradiction to the resource hoarding mentality that characterized Scar's reign. These aren't just nice sentiments, they're the hard-learned lessons of someone who witnessed firsthand how that approach led to catastrophe. We see this contrast clearly in Janja's clan, the spiritual successors to Scar's hyenas, who continue the legacy of conflict and theft. Their constant pressure against Jasiri's territory represents the ongoing influence of Scar's destructive ideology, yet Jasiri consistently chooses a different path, having learned from historical tragedy that cooperation leads to better outcomes than endless conflict. Jasiri's leadership feels both innate and painfully forged in fire when you look closely at her character. Have you ever wondered why someone so young commands such respect and displays such unusual wisdom? The Lion Guard presents her leadership as natural talent, but reality suggests a far more complex truth. Trauma shaped her beliefs and forcibly thrust her into a leadership role she was never prepared for. In real spotted hyena clans, leadership follows a strict matrilineal hierarchy. Female cubs inherit their mother's rank and receive years of training before assuming leadership positions. But Jasiri breaks this pattern completely. She leads without any visible matriarch mentoring her and demonstrates abilities that should be impossible for her age, like a sapling somehow thriving in rocky terrain rather than rich soil. This contradiction forms the heart of Jasiri's character. When we examine Jasiri's diplomatic interactions throughout the series, we see skills that normally develop through decades of observation. She negotiates with Kion in their early encounters, balancing assertiveness with openness to cooperation. She mediates conflicts between different Outlander groups despite her youth. These sophisticated social maneuvers are learned behaviors that typically require extensive apprenticeship under experienced leaders. The show reveals subtle hints about Jasiri's premature rise to leadership. In moments of crisis, we glimpse flashes of uncertainty, quickly masked by determination, the hallmark of someone forced to project confidence while still learning. Her leadership style tells a story. Rather than ruling through dominance, she leads through inspiration and example, creating her own approach without traditional models to follow. What's particularly fascinating is how Jasiri combines both defensive and diplomatic skills in her leadership toolkit. She maintains vigilant border patrols while building cross-species alliances, showing strategic thinking that hyenas twice her age rarely achieve. This combination points to someone who rapidly developed survival strategies after catastrophe thrust her into leadership. Jasiri shares responsibilities with her sister Madoa in a partnership approach to leading their tiny group. This flexible arrangement allows them to provide mutual support. Two young siblings who suddenly found themselves responsible for each other's survival and created a cooperative strategy born of necessity. When Madoa or the cubs face danger, Jasiri's reactions reveal the crushing weight of responsibility she carries. Her fierce protectiveness burns with the intensity of someone who has already lost too much and cannot bear another loss. These aren't the reactions of someone born to lead, but of someone who leads because everyone else is gone. And there we have it, the hidden truth about Jasiri finally exposed. Everything we've examined points to one undeniable conclusion. This isn't just a random character design, but a deliberately crafted tragedy. When Disney created Jasiri, they built an entire backstory explaining why she's so different from every other hyena. Jasiri isn't just the good hyena, she's a survivor who watched her world collapse, yet yet chose kindness when hatred would have been easier. That's why she connects with Kion so quickly. Both understand what it means to forge their own path against expectations. Next time you watch The Lion Guard, notice those protective glances toward her tiny clan, her unusual maturity, how she positions herself between danger and her family. Her entire life experience taught her that cooperation is the only way forward from devastating loss, making her the most compelling character in the entire series. What other hidden depths might we discover in the Lion King universe?